Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. So you're looking at getting into kayaking, or you're already into kayaking and you're looking at choosing your next kayak. Are you frustrated? Are you confused? Or maybe a little intimidated at the amount of options that are out there on the market and price points? Today I'm going to go over 5 things that you need to ask yourself before even looking. These 5 questions are really going to narrow things down for you, and it's going to make the process a lot simpler and a lot more enjoyable. Because let's be honest, why are you wanting to get into kayaking? It looks like a lot of fun, and it is. Getting into the right kayak, it makes all the difference in the world, and I'm going to make that process a lot easier for you. Stay tuned to the end of the video. I'm going to go over some of the biggest mistakes that I see people make when purchasing or looking at a kayak, or even after they purchase a kayak. So stay tuned for that. Let's get right into it. So what has made you get into kayaking? To me personally, it's one of the most therapeutic and serene experiences out there. Being one with nature, it's a very intimate experience, especially when you're solo or with a friend. Whether you're out on the lake, whether you're out on the rivers, or even just going out on the backyard pond, there's something different about kayaking, and that's one of the reasons I think the industry has grown so much just in the last 5 to 10 years. As kayaks evolve and designs evolve, so have the prices. So choosing the right kayak has been more important than ever, and that's why I'm going over this here today. So to make sure that you're making the right decision for you personally, these questions are going to affect whether you're just beginning and starting out, or maybe you're a seasoned paddler and want to buy your next kayak for maybe a different body of water or to replace your current one. Okay, so the first question you need to ask, and really this is the question that really gets skipped over too much in my opinion, is what kind of water are you floating on? What is your primary body of water that you're going to be using this kayak on? And specifically, I'm talking about you got ponds, lakes, or you got rivers and creeks. Now, in those 2 categories, you're really going to vary greatly on the type. So the size of your lake or pond, or the amount of flow that you're getting on these rivers and creeks. Is it a slow moving river? Is it something you're going to be seeing class 2 and 3s and above on? That greatly reduces the amount of kayaks you're looking at. It can give you a more specific kind of kayak. Again, any budget can fit both of these categories, but it gives you the best starting point. So on lakes, this is where you get into your touring style kayaks. These are your really long, slender kayaks, usually 14-foot plus, and it's designed for a much faster paddle, because these are going to be kayaks that you're wanting to cover a great distance and get the best gas mileage on. Faster paddling just means less paddle strokes to go the same distance as most kayaks. Or if you're wanting to keep your paddling down to a smaller area, again, your longer, wider, more stable fishing kayaks or recreational kayaks are really going to fit the bill here. Think of it as having a lazy boy that floats on the water. That's really going to be what you're looking at on a lake, or the touring style kayaks. Now for rivers and creeks, these are going to get into very maneuverable kayaks, maybe shorter kayaks, although you can do longer kayaks depending on the water you're on there, of course. But specifically your rivers and creeks, your narrow passageway, maybe some windy creeks and rivers that are going to have some adventure in there, maybe some shoals, some rapid, and a river kayak will allow you to really maneuver those areas very easily and give you the confidence needed to go on that type of water. So whether you're fishing or just recreational floating, again, you've already narrowed down the gigantic field of kayaks just by answering that question. You're looking at calm, flat water or moving water. Okay, so the second question, and equally as important, or maybe a little bit more important, is your budget. Your money, your cash, the cheddar, all of the above. What budget do you want to stay within? So my biggest advice to you in selecting your kayak you've already got what kind of water you're going to be on, your budget, buy your second kayak first. And that may sound a little confusing, but don't go too low end on the budget if you can. I'm not saying not everybody needs to buy a $5,000 kayak. That's not what I'm saying. But with your budget, you want to go maybe a little bit higher than, I would say $600+ is going to get you into a reasonable quality kayak, both recreational or fishing, although it be a little basic, but it'll get you on the water with something that's going to perform well and be comfortable. So regardless of where your top end budget is, so let's say you've got a $600 budget, look at a kayak that's $100 more or even $150 more and see what you get for that extra money. You may be surprised. And typically what I tell people, when you go up in the price point, your seat will start to change. So this is going to be your frame seats, the seats that go up a little bit higher and lower, maybe adjustable foot pegs versus the molded in footrest. You're going to start to see some changes in the kayak. And looking at those budgets, know where you want to start, but don't be afraid to just look at kayaks that are a little bit above that price range and also a little bit below. Don't go crazy with it, obviously. You don't want to get yourself in trouble financially, but just going at $100 more, $150 more, even if you got to wait a couple of weeks just to add that money to your budget, it's going to get you in a different class of kayak typically. I know here in the store, I arrange the kayaks by inexpensive all the way to more expensive, and it kind of shows you what you get with the additional price on that, and it's not usually a lot of money. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your budget, but get you something that is comfortable, get you something that is going to perform well, but more importantly, get you something that's going to last a long time. And I'm mostly talking about roto-molded kayaks. These are one-piece construction. They're made just like your Yeti coolers are, and they're going to last you a lot longer, even on the lower price end. They're going to survive more abuse. You're going to use it a lot more, and you're going to enjoy your experience a lot more if your kayak isn't taken in water or cracking or puncturing. And is it repairable? That's another thing to look at. So anyways, budget, be realistic on your budget, but also don't be afraid to kind of skirt a little bit higher on it, just looking and see what you get for that extra amount. When you get to the point where you're looking at the little bit extra and it's not important to you, that is where you need to be. So that'll tell you, okay, this kayak is $150 more, but I don't really need those features. That's how you know you're in the right space there and it's still in that budget. So don't be afraid to venture out a little bit. Okay, so water, budget. The next one's going to be needs. What do you need this kayak to do? What's going to be its primary use? The most basic category is going to be recreational floating or kayak fishing, which a lot of us get into. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't fish from a recreational kayak. Far from it. 10, 15 years ago, any kayak with a fishing pole on it was a fishing kayak. But the industry has evolved, it's changed so much that there's a lot more options for your fishing market and your recreational market. But are you just wanting to get out and float and sightsee, maybe wildlife photography or just being in nature? That's going to get you into a different kayak. Are you wanting to occasionally fish, maybe casually fish, focus on the recreational floating, but maybe throw in a lure every now and then? Again, that will keep you in that recreational line. Or are you wanting to fish heavily? Is this going to be primarily for fishing? That is going to get you into a different lineup, and honestly, maybe a little bit more of a pricier kayak, because you're going to want to focus on things like your weight capacity, how comfortable is it, how much time are you going to be spending on this? That all factors into the needs that you have on this kayak. So do you need this thing to be minimalist? Do you need it to be able to carry a lot of gear? Or you want to do overnight trips, camping, things like that? Those are all questions you really need to be asking yourself, and be realistic with it. Try to have your crystal ball ready a little bit. Try to see, assume you're going to love it, and also maybe see what you might be branching into. And that's all going to depend on the water and the areas around you. So keep that in mind as well on your needs. Your needs today may change and evolve as you get into kayaking, and selecting that right kayak can kind of keep you from having to upgrade or purchase another kayak very soon down the road. That happened to me personally. I bought a recreational kayak. I really got into the fishing of it, and I kind of evolved out of the kayak that I bought, and I ended up spending a ton of money going with that first kayak, going with another one, trying to sell the original kayak. It would have helped save me quite a bit of time and money going with that first kayak, because I knew I was going to fish. I took a fishing pole my first day. So anyway, knowing your needs, really kind of dissecting your personal needs and wants to what you want that kayak to do, and choosing a kayak that is going to fit those specific needs. Okay, so the fourth question I'm going to be asking is future plans. And I touched about that a little bit with the needs, but future plans is, okay, you're buying a kayak. Think about it as buying a foundation for a house. What are you wanting to build on that kayak? This is going to be where you're going to customize your kayak, or can you see, if you're fishing, can you see putting a motor? Can you see putting electronics, lighting, anything on that? If you're recreational floating, is it going to be easy for you to store all your gear on there if you want to do those overnight camping trips? If you're just wanting to float, you want to throw a cooler in the back, or is it going to be able to store the amount of stuff that you want to bring with you? If you're not wanting to take anything with you, you just want to go on short trips, again, that's going to be very easy, but just knowing those future plans, you don't want to just buy a kayak that's in your budget. You want to make sure it's going to be in your wants, your needs, and your future plans. And that's going to be, again, that crystal ball thing that I talked about. You're going to want to try, nobody knows where your needs are going to evolve to completely, but you've got a pretty good idea based on the activities that are around you where you may want to go on that. Okay, so the fifth thing, and this is going to be the easiest thing to find out, is comfort. Comfort is one of the things that really people are so concerned with the kayak that they're on, or the budget, is it comfortable for you? Now, your comfort is going to steer you in a lot of different directions, whether you want a frame seat, whether you want to be sitting down on the deck of the kayak, and depending on the water you're on, of course. But your comfort, if you're in a paddle shop or you're at the used market, when you're looking at this kayak, sit in the kayak. Don't be afraid to sit in the kayak. If you don't like it just sitting on it for a couple of minutes, you're going to hate that kayak when you're out there for a few hours on it. Trust me on this. Your comfort is going to be a lot of different things. That's going to be your seating. That's going to be how much leg room you have. How wide is it? How narrow? Is it cluttered? Is that a big deal to you? You want a little bit of a knee bend. You don't want to be locked out straight by any means, but your seating position and what kind of water you're going to be on are going to be really the biggest drivers of your comfort. And just like I talked about on budget, just going up that budget, maybe $100 or $200, is going to get you a little bit more comfort features. So comfort can be your sitting comfort, and it can also be where things are stored. If you got tackle boxes, or if you have dry bags that you want to access while you're on the water, like a little lunch bag or something, where being able to store those where it's easily accessible can, in my opinion, that's a comfort item as well, instead of having to go on the shore, having to get out, having to reach into a hatch. You want to be able to access it, whether it's right behind your seat, attached to your seat, or right in front of you. Those are always things to consider when you're talking about comfort. But comfort's a really simple thing. Sitting on it, kind of feeling yourself, imagine yourself on the water with it, but just if it feels right, because there's a rear end for every seat. There's someone that likes every single comfort feature on a kayak and all the different kayaks, but knowing what fits you best is going to be demoing it on the water, sitting on it when it's on the floor. It's going to be all of the above for that. Okay guys, so now I'm going to go over, and I'm really just going to go over two main mistakes, and these are the biggest mistakes that I see kayakers make. So number one is buying a kayak or trying to change a kayak into something that they want. So these are usually somebody that maybe bought a cheaper kayak and they want to modify it. So, and I see this all the time on social media groups, Facebook groups, where they bought a cheaper kayak and they want to already mod it out, maybe put a frame seat on a kayak that wasn't designed for that frame seat. And I always call it, they're trying to fit the square peg in the round hole. So kayaks, all kayaks, even your big box store, just extreme budget kayaks, they have a design in mind. So not all kayaks are meant to have a frame seat. A lot of times, just because you can mod a kayak doesn't mean you should. So I see people put outriggers, big flotation devices on the side for stability, maybe a frame seat on a kayak that didn't have a frame seat originally. And what you're doing is you're modifying the design, and it could really compromise the integrity of both the hull and the on-the-water performance. So you're comfortable, but you're comfortable on a kayak that's not made for that, and it can be tippy, it can not perform very well on paddling it, and it can just completely wreck the hull design and the hull itself, because sometimes putting those frame seats on those other kayaks can crack the hull. It can create pressure points that weren't designed to handle that weight. So keep that in mind. But we see people do that all the time, is modding things out, and you're trying to create something that's just really not there, and it creates more frustration. If you're frustrated with your kayak, chances are you're going to be frustrated with the kayak industry, and it's going to make you just not want a kayak at all, and that's definitely not what we want. And number two, and in my opinion, the biggest mistake that I see people make is, and these are people that may not have a budget, the sky's the limit, they buy a kayak and they rig it up to the max. I'm talking about a fishing kayak. They've got trolling motors on the front and the back. They've got live scope. They've got fish finders, depth finders, anchoring systems, lighting, switches, everything. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like people do that, and it's the ultimate keeping up with the Joneses, if you will. People will do that. They'll put so much money invested in these things because they saw it online and it looked neat, and it does. But what happens is they get done, or they get halfway through it, and they just decide this is just not what they wanted. And now they've got an $8,000 piece of equipment that is sitting there collecting dust, and then they're trying to sell it. If you go through the used marketplace, or even a lot of the Facebook groups, you're probably seeing a kayak that's got all kinds of gear on it, and it looks like it's never been wet before. So before you rig out your kayak, take it out a couple of times. Get to know the kayak. Know that this kayak may not be right for you. Now, hopefully, if you've asked yourself the rest of the 5 questions, you've probably got the right kayak, but don't rig the kayak before you get it out on the water. That is really going to prevent you from making a very expensive mistake and a huge financial decision. Usually, once you take a kayak out a couple of times on the water, whether it's rivers or whether it's lakes, you're going to know what you want. You're going to know what your boat is lacking and what the limitations are of it, and that's really going to guide you in the direction that you need to go with accessories, with gear, all of that. You get out there, you're going to say, it sure would be nice to have maybe a fishing rod holder here, or a cup holder here, or maybe I want a motor. Where would I put the battery at? Talking with your local dealer, talking with people that do that stuff, but take it out first. Know that the kayak, the foundation of your build, is the right kayak for you and what you're wanting to do for it. And don't just go, we call it, you go gear crazy. You've already said yes to the kayak, you're super excited, you're ready to say yes to any piece of gear out there, and if it's in your budget, maybe sometimes even still, it's good to wait a little bit. Just know that if you buy those things and you put them on a kayak, the more you customize a kayak, the harder it is to get rid of it. So be prepared if you're wanting to sell it. Be prepared to take some of that gear off, sell the kayak and the gear separately, because not everybody wants an $8,000 kayak that was what you built. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this has cleared up some of the mud. If you still have questions, I'm always available down in the comments below, and a lot of us can help you out. Drop a comment if you have any questions, if you're looking at anything in particular out there. And if you go on Facebook groups, usually when somebody gets on there and asks, hey, I'm 6 foot, 220 pounds, what's the best first fishing kayak for me? You're going to get so many answers. Ask yourself those 5 questions first, then ask for some advice, whether it be here on this channel or out there on Facebook. It's going to save you a ton of money, a ton of time, and it's going to really eliminate a lot of the confusion, hopefully, for you. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it, but we'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you.